The morning I found out, the house was silent in a way that felt unnatural. Not peaceful, not calm, hollow. I was sitting at our kitchen island in Columbus, Ohio, staring at my laptop while the coffee in my mug went cold. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The bank app was still open on the screen. Savings account balance, $312.47. 2 days earlier, it had been $186,000. Our emergency fund, our daughter Lily's college fund. The down payment for the small lake house Daniel and I had talked about for years. Gone. At first, I thought it was fraud. Some overseas hacker. Some mistake. I called the bank in a panic, my voice thin and breaking. They were calm. Too calm. Ma'am, the transfer was authorized from your husband's device. All security checks were completed. Authorized. I hung up and felt something inside my chest cave in. Daniel came home that night smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't his. He loosened his tie, tossed his keys on the counter, and looked at me with mild irritation. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. I turned the laptop toward him. He didn't even blink. For a second, I thought I imagined it. But there it was, not shock, not confusion. Just calculation. "It's an investment," he said finally, walking to the fridge like we were discussing groceries. "An investment." My voice cracked. "Daniel, you moved our life savings." "Our savings," he corrected, grabbing a bottle of sparkling water. "I built that account. You just managed it." The words hit harder than the missing money. I had left my marketing job 12 years ago when Lily was born. It was his idea. "Stay home," he'd said. "We'll be a team. I'll handle the income. You handle everything else." Everything else. The house. The bills. The schedules. The holidays. The emotional labor. The support. The quiet sacrifices. Now, suddenly, it was his money. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice barely audible. That made him pause. He didn't deny it. He leaned against the counter and sighed, like I was exhausting him. "Her name is Madison," he said. "She believes in me. She sees my potential. We're starting a consulting firm together." "A consulting firm, with my daughter's college fund." "You stole from us," I whispered. He laughed softly. "Don't be dramatic. This marriage has been over for years. You just didn't notice." I felt something hot and sharp rise in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just nodded. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while he slept beside me, breathing evenly. I replayed every moment of the last decade, looking for signs I had missed. The late meetings. The sudden gym obsession. The way he started criticizing everything about me, my clothes, my cooking, the way I laughed. He had been rewriting our story in his head long before I knew there was a new chapter. By morning, I was done crying. 3 days later, he moved out. He left me with the mortgage, the utilities, and a polite email from his lawyer requesting an amicable and efficient divorce. Amicable. I met with my own attorney in a small office downtown. A woman named Carla with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. She listened without interrupting while I laid out everything. "He transferred marital assets without your consent," she said. "And used them for a business venture with a romantic partner." "Yes." She gave a slow smile. "That's not going to look good in court." For the first time in days, I felt something other than despair. I didn't want a screaming courtroom battle. I wanted something quieter, smarter, something that would make him feel exactly what I had felt, powerless. So I did what I hadn't done in over a decade. I updated my resume. I reached out to former colleagues. I took online certification courses at night after Lily went to sleep. Digital strategy, data analytics, corporate finance basics. I rebuilt myself piece by piece, like someone restoring a house after a fire. Meanwhile, Daniel's consulting firm started appearing on LinkedIn. Polished posts, glamorous photos, Madison in tailored suits, hand on his arm. They bragged about landing small local clients. I watched silently. Carla filed motions. Subpoenas went out. Financial records surfaced. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became. Daniel hadn't just taken money. He had leveraged it. Personal guarantees, risky contracts, debt disguised as ambition. He thought I wouldn't understand. He forgot I used to run marketing analytics for Fortune 500 accounts. 6 months later, the divorce settlement was finalized. I didn't get everything back. But I got enough. And more importantly, I got leverage. Because Daniel's firm was struggling. And the company I had just been hired by, a fast-growing regional logistics corporation expanding across the Midwest, was looking to acquire smaller consulting firms to build an in-house strategy division. When I saw Daniel's company name on the potential acquisition list, my pulse didn't race. It steadied. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was planning. I volunteered to lead the due diligence review on the acquisition targets, presenting myself as objective and data-driven while privately studying every weakness in Daniel's firm. I discovered inflated projections, unstable client contracts, and over-leveraged debt tied directly to the money he had taken from our joint savings. In executive meetings, I calmly recommended acquisition at a significantly reduced valuation, citing risk exposure and leadership volatility, without revealing my personal connection. The board approved the purchase under strict restructuring conditions, requiring Daniel to stay on temporarily under new management oversight. On acquisition day, I walked into the glass conference room as the newly appointed vice president of strategy, watching the color drain from his face when he saw my name on the leadership slide. He tried to speak to me privately, his voice unsteady, but I kept my tone professional and distant, reminding him that all communication must now go through formal channels. Over the next 3 months, I enforced performance metrics he could not manipulate, exposing his lack of real expertise without raising my voice once. Madison quietly resigned when her projected role was eliminated during restructuring, leaving Daniel isolated in the company he thought would make him powerful. The morning of his contract review, I arrived earlier than usual. The office was quiet, the city outside still wrapped in gray dawn light. I placed the final report neatly in a black folder and read through it one more time, not because I doubted it, but because I wanted to feel every word. Every number had been verified twice. Every email timestamped. Every financial decision cross-referenced against company policy. There was no emotion in the document. No bitterness. Just facts. At 9 a.m., Daniel walked into the executive conference room wearing the same confident expression he used to wear when he thought he could talk his way out of anything. But there were cracks now. Faint lines around his eyes. A stiffness in his posture. He avoided looking at me directly. The HR director sat to my right. Legal counsel to my left. Daniel took the seat across from us, placing his hands flat on the table like he was bracing for impact. "This is just a formality, right?" he said with a thin smile. I didn't return it. "This is a performance and compliance review," I replied evenly. "Standard procedure following acquisition." I opened the folder. For the next 40 minutes, I walked them through everything. Unauthorized reallocations, misrepresented growth forecasts, client retention rates that had been artificially boosted through short-term discounts that damaged long-term margins. Personal guarantees tied to high-risk contracts, guarantees funded by what had once been our family savings. I never raised my voice. I never rushed. When I finished presenting the financial exposure his decisions had created for the company, the room felt smaller. Daniel finally looked at me, and this time there was no arrogance in his eyes. Just something raw, something close to fear. "You're twisting this," he said, but it sounded weak. "Every startup takes risks. Calculated risks," I corrected calmly. "Not reckless ones." Legal slid a document across the table, an internal compliance summary outlining breaches of fiduciary responsibility under his contract terms. "This is ridiculous," Daniel muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You're enjoying this." I held his gaze steadily. "This isn't personal. This is business." The words hung between us. Years ago, he had said almost the same thing when he emptied our account. Cold, detached, certain that I would crumble. Now the board had documentation. HR had policy violations. Legal had contractual grounds. The decision was no longer emotional. It was procedural. As the meeting ended, Daniel's shoulders sagged slightly. He understood. For the first time since the day he walked out of our house, he wasn't in control of the narrative. And he knew exactly who had written it. The official termination meeting was scheduled for Friday at 4:30 p.m., late enough that most employees would already be gone, early enough that security and HR were still present. I chose the time carefully. Daniel walked into my office without knocking, something he used to do at home when he wanted to dominate a conversation. But this wasn't our kitchen anymore. This was my floor, my department, my building. He looked tired, smaller somehow. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. "We were married. We have a daughter." I didn't flinch at the word married. It felt like something from another lifetime. "This decision isn't about our marriage," I said evenly. "It's about your contract." He let out a hollow laugh. "Come on, you built this whole thing just to get back at me." I folded my hands on the desk, steady. "No," I replied. "I rebuilt myself because you left me with nothing." There was a long silence. For a second, I saw the man I once loved, the younger version of him who used to bring me coffee in bed, who once promised we were a team. But that version had disappeared long before Madison ever showed up. He had traded partnership for ego, loyalty for validation. "I made mistakes," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I thought I deserved more." "You did deserve more," I answered softly. "You just thought it had to come from someone else." A knock at the door. HR stepped in, composed and professional. The envelope was placed on my desk. I picked it up. Termination for cause. Effective immediately. Severance forfeited under breach clauses he had signed himself. I stood and walked around the desk, stopping a few feet from him. I handed him the envelope without hesitation. "This concludes your employment with the company," I said calmly. "Security will escort you to collect your belongings." His hands trembled as he took it. "You're really going to watch me walk out?" he asked. I met his eyes, steady and clear. "I already watched you walk out once," I said. "This time, I'm prepared." Security appeared discreetly in the hallway. Daniel looked around the office, the glass walls, the city skyline behind me, the nameplate on the door that carried my title. For the first time, he truly understood. The money he took had built the foundation of his downfall. The humiliation he gave me had forged my discipline. The betrayal that broke me had sharpened me. He didn't lose his job because I hated him. He lost it because I finally stopped underestimating myself. As he stepped into the hallway, escorted past the rows of quiet desks, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel triumph. I felt free. That night, I picked Lily up from school and took her to dinner by the river. The sky was painted gold and violet, the air cool and clean. She talked about her classes, her friends, her plans for college. This time, I knew her future was secure. Not because of him, because of me.